April Midnight by Arthur Symons. Side by side through the streets at midnight, roaming together, through the tumultuous night of London in the miraculous April weather, roaming together under the gaslight, day's work over, how the spring calls to us here in the city, calls to the heart from the heart of a lover. Cool the wind blows fresh in our faces, cleansing, entrancing, after the heat and the fumes and the footlights where you dance and I watch your dancing. Good it is to be here together, good to be roaming, even in London, even at midnight, lovers like in a lover's gloaming. You the dancer and I the dreamer, children together, wandering lost in the night of London, in the miraculous April weather.
Anthem for Doomed Youth by Wilfred Owen. What passing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous anger of the guns. Only the stuttering rifle's rapid rattle can patter out their hasty orisons. No mockeries now for them, no prayers nor bells, nor any voice of mourning, save the choirs, the shrill, demented choirs of wailing shells and bugles calling for them from sad shires. What candles may be held to speed them all, not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. The pallor of girls' brows shall be their pall, their flowers the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds.
Crepuscule with Muriel by Marilyn Hacker. Instead of a cup of tea, instead of a milk silk whelk of a cup of nearly 6 o'clock tea time, cup of a stumbling block, cup of an afternoon unredeemed by talk, cup of a cut brown loaf, of a slice, a lack of butter, blueberry jam that's almost black, instead of tannin seeping into the cracks of a pot. The void of an hour seeps out, infects the slit of a cut I haven't the wit to fix, with a surgeon's needle threaded with fine gauge silk, as a key would thread the cylinder of a lock. But no key threads the cylinder of a lock. Late afternoon light, transitory, licks the place of the absent cup with its rough tongue, flicks itself out beneath the wheel's revolving spoke. Taut thoughts gone with a blink of attention, slack, a vision of death and distance in the mix. She lost her words, and how did she get them back when the corridor of a day was a lurching deck, the dream-life logic encodes in nervous ticks. She translated to a syntax which connects intense and unfashionable politics with morning coffee, Hudson sunsets, sex. Then the short circuit of the final stroke, the end toward which all lines looped out then broke, what a gaze out the window interjects. On the southeast corner, a black lab box, tugged as the light clicks green toward a late day walk by a plump brown girl in a purple anorak. The Bronx-bound local comes rumbling up the tracks, out of the tunnel over West Harlem blocks, whose windows gleam on the animal warmth of bricks, rouged by the fluvial light of 6 o'clock.
Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear: "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my work, seem mighty, and despair." Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away.
Sonnet 18, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day, by William Shakespeare. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short to date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou oust. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, for in eternal lines to time thou growst. So long as man can breathe and eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
Caged Bird by Maya Angelou. A free bird leaps on the back of a wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to climb the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard from the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wind soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on the dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom.
The Bear by Susan Mitchell. Tonight, the bear comes to the orchard and, balancing on her hind legs, dances under the apple trees, hanging on to their boughs, dragging their branches down to earth. Look again. It is not the bear, but some after-image of her, like the car I once saw in the driveway after the last guest had gone. Snow pulls the apple boughs to the ground. Whatever moves in the orchard, heavy, lumbering, is clear as wind. The bear is long gone. Drunk on apples, she banged over the trash cans that fall night, then skidded downstream. By now she must be logged in for the winter. Unless she is choosy. I imagine her as very choosy, sniffing at the huge logs, pawing them, trying each one on for size, but always coming out again. Until tonight. Tonight, sap freezes under her skin. Her breath leaves white apples in the air. As she walks, she dozes, listening to the sound of axes chopping wood. Somewhere she can never catch up to, trees are falling. Chips pile up like snow. When she does finally find it, The log draws her in as easily as a forest, and for a while she continues to see, just ahead of her, the moon trapped like a salmon in the ice.
Ode by Arthur O'Shaughnessy. We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams, wandering by lone sea breakers and sitting by desolate streams. World losers and world forsakers, on whom the pale moon gleams. Yet we are the movers and shakers of the world forever, it seems. With wonderful deathless ditties, we build up the world's great cities. And out of a fabulous story, we fashion an empire's glory. One man with a dream, at pleasure, shall go forth and conquer a crown, and three with a new song's measure can trample a kingdom down. We, in the ages lying in the buried past of the earth, built Nineveh with our sighing, and Babel itself in our mirth, and o'erthrew them with prophesying to the old of the new world's worth. For each age is a dream that is dying, or one that is coming to birth.
Luke Havergal by Edwin Arlington Robinson. Go to the western gate, Luke Havergal. There, where the vines cling crimson on the wall. And in the twilight, wait for what will come. The leaves will whisper there of her, and some, like flying words, will strike you as they fall. But go, and if you listen, she will call. Go to the western gate, Luke Havergal. Luke Havergal. No, there is not a dawn in eastern skies to rift the fiery night that's in your eyes. But there, where western glooms are gathering, the dark will end the dark, if anything. God slays himself with every leaf that flies, and hell is more than half of paradise. No, there is not a dawn in eastern skies, in eastern skies. Out of a grave I come to tell you this. Out of a grave I come to quench the kiss that flames upon your forehead with a glow that blinds you to the way that you must go. Yes, there is yet one way to where she is, bitter, but one that faith may never miss. Out of a grave I come to tell you this. To tell you this. There's the western gate, Luke Havergal. There are the crimson leaves upon the wall. Go, for the winds are tearing them away, nor think to riddle the dead words they say, nor any more to feel them as they fall. But go, and if you trust her, she will call. There's the western gate, Luke Havergal. Luke Havergal.
First Storm and Thereafter by Scott Cairns. What I noticed first within this rough scene fixed in memory is the rare quality of its lightning, as if those bolts were clipped from a comic book, pasted on low cloud or fashioned from cardboard, daubed with gilt, then hung overhead on wire and fine hooks. What I hear most clearly within that thunder now is its grief, a moan, a long lament echoing an ache. And the rain? Raucous enough, pounding, but oddly musical, and, well, eager to entertain, solicitous. No storm since has been framed with such matter-of-fact artifice, nor to such comic effect. No, the 1,000+ storms since then have turned increasingly artless, arbitrary, bearing, every one of them, a numbing burst. And today, from the west, a gust and a filling pressure pulsing in the throat, offering little or nothing to be made light of.
The World is About to End, and My Grandparents Are in Love by Kara Jackson. Still, living like they orbit one another. My grandfather, the planet, and Grandma, his moon assigned by some gravitational pull. They have loved long enough for a working man to retire. Grandma says she's not tired. She wears her husband like a coat that survives every season, talks about him the way my parents talk about vinyl, the subject salvaged by the tent of their tongues. Grandma returns to her love like a hymn, marks it with a color. When the world ends, will it suck the earth of all its love? Will I go, taking somebody's hand, my skin becoming their skin? The digital age is taking away our winters, and I'm afraid the sun is my soulmate. That waste waits for a wet kiss. Carbon calls me pretty, and I think death is a good first date. I hope when the world ends, it leaves them be. Spares Grandpa and his game, Grandma spinning corn into wheat, the two of them reeling into Western theme songs, the TV louder than whatever is coming.
Sylvia Plath's Eulogy for Sylvia Plath by Sina Calleras. If you can't feel love in life, then you won't feel it in death. Nor will you feel the tulip skin, nor the soft gravel of childhood under cheek. You will have writhed across the page for a hard couplet, a firm rhyme, ass as high as any downward dog, and cutlass arms lashing any mother who tries to pass. Let's be frank about the cost of spurs. Mothers like ponies, whirling in storm drains, families sunk before reaching open water. The empty boudoir will haunt, but not how you imagine it will. Nothing, not even death, frees mothers from the cutting board, the balloons, their lack of resistance. Thoughts, he said, quick as tulips staggering across the quad. She heard I like my women splayed out. Red swollen, domesticated, wanting out. The tulips were never warm. My loves, they never smelled of spring. They never marked the path out of loneliness, never led me home, nor to me, nor away from what spring or red or tulips could never be.
Hi, I'm John Floridis, and I just got done playing a piece of music for you called October Surprise. It's the title track from an album that I released of all instrumental guitar tunes and released it about a little over 3 years ago, I think now. And thank you for the chance to play that for you. I was also asked to say a few words about finding your own voice, and I think that's something that musicians are frequently talking about and frequently and continually seeking. It's a process, and it's kind of a means more than it is an end, I think. When I first started playing guitar, I listened to the Rolling Stones, listened to my dad, I listened to Jimi Hendrix, Paul Simon, Andre Segovia, classical guitarist, all kinds of stuff. But eventually I knew that I wanted to sound like me, and that's easier said than done. And I think that that is a journey that people make regardless of whether they're a musician or an artist, but just trying to find their own voice as a person and being comfortable in their own skin. I think that's part of it, and that's part of the journey. It's a journey I think I'm still very much on in my 50s. So if you're watching this and you're a younger person, just know that it is a journey, and it's worth the effort, and it's worth the introspection and the work to find your own voice, both as an artist and as a person. And it's one that it's a journey that we all go on, I think, whether we're artists or not. And I encourage you to keep going on the journey. It's worth it. And all the best to you. Thanks again.
Welcome to Poetry Out Loud 2022. I'm Mark Gibbons. I'm the current Poet Laureate of the state of Montana, and I have been involved in Poetry Out Loud since its inception. So I was going to say maybe you saw me last year, but in this virtual world you probably didn't. So hopefully next year, if you are still involved, I'll get a chance to lay eyes on you as a human being. So we'll see you then. Until then, I just wanted to thank you for being involved in Poetry Out Loud. I think it's obviously something near and dear to my heart. I think that besides being just great brain practice to memorize things, it's something that we really need as a society, and we have always depended on. We've always depended on it at funerals. We've always depended on it at weddings. The recitation of a poem is always pulled out, kind of like prayer. And so it's very important what you've undertaken. You will pull one of these out that you've memorized somewhere down the line at a party, or maybe in hunting camp, God knows where. You'll pull it out and you'll just start reciting a poem, and people will pay attention and they will be thankful that you did it. They'll smile, they'll say thanks, they might even applaud. So congratulations on what you've done. One more quick thing. I've been involved in this for a long time because I love the oral recitation of poetry. I think it's important to us, but at the same time, it's always been kind of a conflict, this whole competition thing. I don't believe in competition when it comes to the arts. And so somebody's going to win. Somebody's going to go on. And the rest of you aren't, but that doesn't make you losers in any way, shape, or form. Whoever goes on deserves it and are lucky, but it comes down to that, I think, to a great extent, luck. It's a numbers game, it's a judgment call, it's a subjective opinion. And you have done something great. Continue to do it, spread the word, teach others to memorize poems, and have fun. That's my 2 bits worth. That's my pep talk. I'm a cheerleader for poetry. So I want to recite one for you, and I thought I should memorize a new one, something I didn't know, even though it's one I wrote, so, you know, I've read it a lot of times. It's kind of a cheat compared to what you guys do. But the title of the poem is I Believe I Remember Love. And it was a poem based on a memory of me and my mother and my dad something years ago. And so it was a poem for my mom, as the way I always thought of it. I had a call this weekend while I was in the process of memorizing this thing, and a friend of mine called to let me know that his mother just died suddenly, and a friend and fellow poet, and so that made this even more poignant than it would have been on its own. And so Forgive me if I get caught up in the emotional end of things, hopefully not. Here we go. I believe I remember love. My mother was transforming another tough pot roast into meatloaf, grinding up chunks of gristly beef, bovine scraps she'd boned off a shoulder blade. As she bore down on the stiff crank handle and fed the iron gullet of the meat grinder the auger whole, I stood beside her, a shadow, not yet two, held on to the counter and cutting board, listened to the squish and roar of meat pushing through spaghetti-sized holes. I was mesmerized by those oozing red hamburger strings. In a flash, I reached up and plugged a hole with my finger to stop the flow. Didn't know about the slashing, windmilling knives turning industriously, cleaving all meat. My mother and I screamed, cried hysterically, held hands and a dish towel full of blood while my dad drove the 30 miles of curvy road, a 2-lane along the river, cussing full throttle. They hustled me through the lobby of the clinic, brick and glass. I saw wheelchairs, white gowns running about, watched an overhead light fade. Finally, at home, I remember sitting on the floor in overalls, a lemon sucker in one hand and plaster cast on the other. People laughing, smiling at me, the fabled little Dutch boy who survived the flood. I was the talk of the neighborhood, the focus of the family. My first memory, that trauma, was perfect drama. An audience brings us joy. Our greatest happiness is the belief we are loved. It's what we live for, what we desire most. We learn to tolerate any pain, risk blood or breath, anything, if we believe we are loved right now, forever. Thank you. Good luck. Poetry!
This is To Helen by Edgar Allan Poe. Helen, thy beauty is to me like those Nicean barks of yore, that gently o'er a perfumed sea, the weary, way-worn wanderer bored to his own native shore, on desperate seas long wont to roam. Thy hyacinth hair, thy classic face, thy naiad airs that brought me home to the glory that was Greece and the grandeur that was Rome. Lo, in yon brilliant window niche, how statue-like I see thee stand, the agate lamp within thy hand. Ah, Psyche, from regions which are Holy Land.
Art versus Trade by James Weldon Johnson. Trade. Trade versus art. Brain. Brain versus heart. Oh, the earthiness of these hard-hearted times when clinking dollars and jingling dimes drowned all the finer music of the soul. Life as an octopus with but this creed, that the whole world was made to serve his greed. Trade has spread out his mighty myriad claw and drawn into his foul polluted maw the brightest and the best. Well nigh, has he drained dry the sacred fount of truth? And if, forsooth, he has left yet some struggling streams from it to go, he has contaminated so their flow, that truth, scarce it be true. Poor art, with struggling gasp, lies strangled, dying in his mighty grasp. He locks his grimy fingers about her snowy throat so tender. Is there no power left to rescue her, protect, defend her? Shall art be left to perish? Shall all the images her shrines cherish be left to this iconoclast, to vulgar trade? Oh, that mankind had less brain and more heart. Oh, that the world had less trade and more art. Then would there be less grinding down the poor? Then would men learn to love each other more? For trade stalks like a giant through the land, bearing aloft the rich in his high hand, while down beneath his mighty ponderous tread, he crushes those who cry for daily bread.
All Hallows Eve by Dorothea Tanning. Be perfect. Make it otherwise. Yesterday is torn in shreds. Lightning's thousand sulphur eyes rip apart the breathing beds. Hear bones crack and pulverize. Doom creeps in on rubber treads. Countless overwrought housewives, minds unraveling like threads, try lipstick shades to tranquilize fears of age and general dreads. Sit still, be perfect, swat the spies. Don't take faucets for fountainheads. Drink tasty antidotes. Otherwise, you and the werewolf newlyweds.
Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.
Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, hold with those who favor fire. But if it had it perished twice, think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great, and would suffice.
Caged Bird by Maya Angelou. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wings in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through bars of rage that his wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. A caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on a distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. A free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wind soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and names the sky his own. But the caged bird stands on a grave of dreams. His shadows shout on a nightmare's screams. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on a distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom.
Broken Promises by David Kirby. I have met them in dark alleys, limping in one arm. I have seen them playing cards under a single light bulb and try to join in, but they refused me rudely, knowing I would only let them win. I have seen them in the foyers of theaters, coming back late from the interval, long after the others have taken their seats. And in deserted shopping malls late at night, peering at things they can never buy. And I have found them wandering in a wood where I too have wandered. This morning I caught one, small and stupid, too slow to get away. It was only a promise I had made to myself once. and then forgot. But it screamed and kicked at me and ran to join the others, who looked at me with reproach in their long, sad faces. When I drew near them, they scurried away, even though they will sleep in my yard tonight. I hate them for their ingratitude. I, who have kept countless promises, as dead now as Shakespeare's children. You bastards, I scream. You have to love me. I gave you life.
The Conqueror Worm by Edgar Allan Poe. Lo, 'tis a gala night within the lonesome latter years, an angel throng, bewinged, bedight in veils, and drowned in tears, sit in a theatre to see a play of hopes and fears, while the orchestra breathes fitfully the music of the spheres. Mimes, in the form of God on high, mutter and mumble low, and hither and thither fly. Mere puppets they, who come and go at bidding of vast formless things that shift the scenery to and fro, flapping from out their condor wings invisible woe. That motley drama, oh, be sure it shall not be forgot, with its phantom chased forevermore by a crowd that sees it not, through a circle that ever returneth into the self-same spot, and much of madness, and more of sin and horror, the soul of the plot. But see, amid the mimic rout, a crawling shape intrude, a blood-red thing that writhes from out the scenic solitude. It writhes, it writhes! With mortal pangs the mimes become its food, and seraphs sob at vermin fangs and human gore imbued. Out are the lights, out all, and over each quivering form the curtain, a funeral pall, comes down with the rush of a storm. And the angels, all pallid and wan, uprising, unveiling, affirm that the play is the tragedy man and its hero, the conqueror worm.
The Hospital Window by James L. Dickey. I have just come down from my father. Higher and higher, he lies above me in a blue light shed by a tinted window. I drop through 6 white floors and then step out on a pavement. Still feeling my father ascend, I start to cross the firm street, my shoulder blades shining with all the glass the huge building can raise. Now, I must turn round and face it, and know his one pain from the others. Each window possesses the sun, as though it burned there on a wick. I wave like a man catching fire. All the deep-dyed window panes flash, and behind them, all the white rooms. They turn to the color of heaven. Ceremoniously, gravely and weakly, dozens of pale hands are waving back from inside their flames. Yet one pure pain among these is the bright, erased blankness of nothing. I know that my father is there, in the shape of his death, still living. The traffic increases around me, like a madness called down on my head. The horns blast at me like shotguns, and drivers lean out, driven crazy. But now, my propped up father lifts his arm out of stillness at last. The light from the window strikes me, and I turn as blue as a soul, as the moment when I was born. I am not afraid for my father. Look, he is grinning. He is not afraid for my life either. As the wild engines stand at my knees, shredding their gears and roaring, and I hold each car in its place for miles, inciting its horn to blow down the walls of the world, that the dying may float without fear in the bold blue gaze of my father. Slowly, I move to the sidewalk, with my pin-tingling hand half dead at the end of my bloodless arm. I carry it off in amazement. High, still higher, still waving, my recognized face, fully mortal, yet not at all, in the pale, drained, otherworldly, stricken, created hue of stained glass. I have just come down from my father.
Dirge Without Music by Edna St. Vincent Millay. I am not resigned to the shutting away of loving hearts in the hard ground. So it is, and so it will be, for so it has been, time out of mind. Into the darkness they go, the wise and the lovely, crowned with lilies and with laurel they go. But I am not resigned. Lovers and thinkers, into the earth with you. Be one with the dull, the indiscriminate dust, a fragment of what you felt, of what you knew. A formula, a phrase remains, but the best is lost. The answers quick and keen, the honest look, the laughter, the love, they are gone. They are gone to feed the roses. Elegant and curled is the blossom. Fragrant is the blossom. I know, but I do not approve. More precious was the light in your eyes than all the roses in the world. Down, down, down into the darkness of the grave. Gently they go, the beautiful, the tender, the kind. Quietly they go, the intelligent, the witty, the brave. I know, but I do not approve, and I am not resigned.
I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Died by Emily Dickinson. I heard a fly buzz when I died. The stillness in the room was like the stillness in the air between the heaves of storm. The eyes around had wrung them dry, and breaths were gathering firm for that last onset. When the king be witnessed in the room, I willed my keepsakes signed away what portion of me be assignable. And then it was there interposed a fly, with blue, uncertain, stumbling buzz between the light and me. And then the windows failed, and then I could not see to see.
Cartoon Physics, Part 1, by Nick Flynn. Children under, say, 10 shouldn't know that the universe is ever expanding, inexorably pushing into the vacuum, galaxies swallowed by galaxies, whole solar systems collapsing, all of it acted out in silence. At 10, we are still learning the rules of cartoon animation, that if a man draws a door on a rock, only he can pass through it. Anyone else who tries will crash into the rock. 10-year-olds should stick with burning houses, car wrecks, ships going down, earthbound, tangible disasters, arenas where they can be heroes. You can run back into a burning house. Sinking ships have lifeboats. The trucks will come with their ladders. If you jump, you will be saved. A child places her hand on a roof of a school bus and drives across a city of sand. She knows the exact spot it will skid, at which point the bridge will give, who will swim to safety, and who will be pulled under by sharks. She will learn that if a man runs off the edge of a cliff, he will not fall until he notices his mistake.
Diameter by Michelle Y. Burke. You love your friend, so you fly across the country to see her. Your friend is grieving. You look at her, you see that something's missing. You look again. She seems all there. Reading glasses, sarcasm, leather pumps. What did you expect? Ruins? Demeter without arms in the British Museum? Your friend says she believes there's more pain than beauty in the world. When Persephone was taken, Demeter damned the world for half the year. The other half remained warm and bountiful. The Greeks loved symmetry. On the plane, the man next to you read a geometry book, the lesson on finding the circumference of a circle. On circumference, you can calculate the way around if you know the way across. You try across with your friend. You try around. I don't believe in an afterlife, she says. But after Kay died, I thought I might go after her, in case I was wrong, in case she's somewhere waiting.
Hey, congratulations, state finalists. We are the Hellgate Jazz Band. We're going to share some sonic sunshine with you to send you on your way. Congratulations and good luck.
A Certain Kind of Eden by Kay Ryan. It seems like you could, but you can't go back and pull the roots and runners and replant. It's all too deep for that. You've overprized intention, have mistaken any bent you're given for control. You thought you chose the bean and chose the soil. You even thought you abandoned 1 or 2 gardens. But those things keep growing where we put them, if we put them at all. A certain kind of Eden holds us thrall. Even the one vine that tendrils out alone, in time turns on its own impulse, twisting back down its upward course. A strong, then a stronger rope, the greenest, saddest, strongest kind of hope.
No, I wasn't meant to love and be loved, by Mirza Asadullah Khan Ghalib. No, I wasn't meant to love and be loved. If I'd lived longer, I would have waited longer. Knowing you are faithless keeps me alive and hungry. Knowing you are faithful would kill me with joy. Delicate are you, and your vows are delicate too. So easily do they break. You are a laconic marksman. You leave me not dead, but perpetually dying. I want my friends to heal me, succor me. Instead, I get analysis. Conflagrations that would make stones drip blood are campfires compared to my anguish. Two-headed, inescapable anguish. Love's anguish or the anguish of time. Another dark, severing, incommunicable night. Death would be fine if I only died once. I would have liked a solitary death. Not this lavish funeral, this grave anyone can visit. You are mystical, Ghalib, and also you speak beautifully. Are you a saint or just drunk as usual?
The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here, at our sea-washed sunset gate shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome, and her mild eyes command the air-bridge harbor that twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door.
Where the Wild Things Go by D. Gilson. The night Max wore his wolf suit made him infamous, bred the child star, never sent to bed. Middle school, Max started drinking. Not in my house, his mother begged. No, 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 wild thing. Max reminded her, who bought this condo? Who paid for her meds? Freshman year, Max raved, roared his terrible roar, rolled, and almost wound up in a warehouse, dead. Where, oh, where do the wild things go? To rehab in high school, to college on residual book sales. Max kept his head down, laughed at drunken frat boys. Bro, let the wild rumpus start. Max said, no thanks, and volunteered for the Peace Corps instead. 2 years in Kenya, 1 in Belarus. The president thought Max might be of some use. Max moved to Washington, appointed at the State Department a cultural attaché. One important day, Max wore his wolf gray suit, then drove home well past rush hour in a freak snowstorm. Max drove on the deserted beltway, thought it his throne. Yes, Max belted. This is where the wild things roam.
When I Heard the Learned Astronomer by Walt Whitman. When I heard the learned astronomer, when the proofs, the figures were ranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and diagrams to add, divide, and measure them, when I, sitting, heard the astronomer where he lectured with much applause in the lecture room, how soon, unaccountable, I became tired and sick, till, rising and gliding out, I wandered off by myself in the mystical, moist night air, and, from time to time, looked up in perfect silence at the stars.
Another one of the world's liars by Moha Koff. I am just another one of the world's liars. Believe me, I have a few charms, worn out peddlers' trinkets, with grand names like beauty, friendship, truth, passion. And this one's a real item. Sometimes I even buy it myself. Love. Check my record. Odds are not in your favor that I won't sell out my goods. Bolt by night, deny you 3 times before the cock has crowed. Consider this fair warning. Never fall for my spiel. If you do, and end up with a huge bill for damage done, never forgive me.